How do you make apple cinnamon bread? If you are craving a warm, sweet treat, you might be wondering how to make apple cinnamon bread. This delightful recipe is perfect for using your bread machine, making the process simple and enjoyable. Let's get started with the basics. First, gather your ingredients. You will need all-purpose or bread flour, diced apples, sugar, cinnamon, yeast, milk or water, oil or melted butter, and salt. Make sure you have a bread machine ready, along with measuring cups and spoons. If you prefer to bake manually, you will also need a mixing bowl and an oven. Now let's prepare the wet ingredients. In your bread machine pan, combine the milk, oil or melted butter, and sugar. If you are mixing by hand, do this in a separate bowl. Next, it is time to add the dry ingredients. Place the flour, salt, cinnamon, and yeast on top of the wet mixture in the bread machine. If you are using the manual method, mix these dry ingredients in another bowl before adding them to the wet ingredients. Now let's add the apples. Dice your apples and set them aside. If you are using a bread machine, add the apples during the mix-in phase. If you are baking manually, fold the diced apples into the dough after the first rise. Now we will mix and knead the dough. If you are using a bread machine, select the basic white bread setting and let it do the work. If you are mixing by hand, combine the wet and dry ingredients, then knead the dough until it is smooth and elastic. Next, we need to let the dough rise. If you are using a bread machine, it will handle this step for you. If you are baking manually, let the dough rise in a warm place for about 1 hour. After it has risen, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 175 degrees Celsius. Once the dough has risen, it is time to bake. If you are using a bread machine, it will bake the bread for you. If you are baking manually, place the dough in the oven and bake for about 40 minutes. For some extra flavor, consider adding nuts or other spices to your mixture. If you want to glaze your apple bread, mix icing sugar with milk and melted butter, then drizzle it over the cooled loaf. Another fun variation is to make pull-apart apple bread. Roll out the dough, spread it with a cinnamon sugar mixture, and layer it with diced apples before baking. By following these steps, you can create a delicious apple cinnamon bread that is perfect for breakfast or as a snack. Enjoy the delightful aroma and taste of this homemade treat.